Welcome to the Eclectic Gamers Podcast. Today's Sunday, April 2nd. This is episode 190. I am Tony.
And I am Dennis. And this is going to be our Texas Pinball Festival, a.k.a. TPF, 2023 recap. But before we do that, we obviously will start with our introductions. And before doing even that, I will note we did pick up another Patreon member.
Yay.
And Michael J., intermediate support level. So as of the last check, our count is at 52, and we appreciate all of you. And I hope those of you who, whether you're a Patreon member or not, enjoyed Tony's revival of the grams. Because on our trip,
Yeah, we did some grams.
you did. I didn't put any grams out.
You were in some of the pictures.
I was, I guess, but I didn't actually.
I chose the completely wrong time-lapse speed on one of the time-lapses I wanted to do.
It was that
and
was
I held
fun.
the phone for like 2.5 minutes, and I had like 4 seconds of video, and I was like, oh,
Yes.
no.
So Tony, for those that haven't seen him, you can go to either our Instagram or they're also shared on the Facebook page at eclectic. What is our Facebook? Facebook.com/eclectic gamers podcast, I think is how you can get to that. And so he wanted to do some time lapses as we drove through some of the major cities. And
Major in quotations.
Yes, major for us, major on our route. And so you did that, and then yes, the one you had set so that it was requiring an awful lot of content and before it would actually have a second's worth of video to show. And he's like, my arms are getting tired.
Because
I was like, well, how much time do you want? And he goes, well, normally I want the video to be 20 seconds. And it's like, but based off this current recording, I think that's going to be 20 minutes of holding the phone up. And it's like, well, we might be there by then.
Yeah, it was me playing around with the time lapse just that comes naturally on my phone. And I didn't do anything smart like, have something designed to hold the phone or planned around it or have, just gotten like a GoPro and set it on time lapse and put it on the dash like I probably should have. Instead, I just played it by ear on the fly and we had ourselves sore arms.
Yes. Well, you did.
I did.
Well, mine, I guess, were a little sore from the steering wheel, but only a little bit. So anyway, we're going to go over the show here as the bulk of our episode. You do have a few video game items that you'll also cover. Anything interesting happening since getting back? Because obviously we actually got back a week ago.
Right. No, I took it pretty easy. Work catch up was deeply involved. So I was pretty busy all week long. And then I woke up yesterday morning. I slept way longer than I normally sleep. It was interesting because we'd done a live stream for your watch thing the night before, and then once I went to bed, I slept really good. And when I woke up, we had no internet.
Oh,
I was like, okay, well, that's fine. I'll just play some Jedi Fallen Order. Oh yeah, it's by EA. You have to have an internet connection to play a single player game because it's by EA. So instead, I fired up Horizon Zero Dawn, which was the game that I was going to start on after Jedi Fallen Order, and I played it for a big chunk of the day between working on stuff with the family and taking kids to their stuff and all that. So, but our internet was down for like 6+ hours.
Was it just a general outage in the area?
It was a general outage in the area.
That's usually what gets me too.
Yep.
I usually have it a couple times a year. Well, when we drove back last Sunday, so a week ago, I had that Monday off, and then I went to a public health conference that I had scheduled for work.
Which is probably just as much, if not more fun than TPF.
It was a little bit less fun. I had 2 presentations to do for it, so because the first day, the Tuesday that I went out there, was actually pre-conference, but they had asked me, and I kind of thought about skipping that part because I knew I was still going to be really tired. Only because Monday being off I'm off of work, but like I had to do all the laundry and everything to get ready for the next trip, and I was just like, I really wish I had another day. But so I thought maybe I could cut out of not doing the pre-conference this year. But then they asked me to present during part of the pre-conference, so I was like, okay, well, no, never mind, because at least they started late enough in the day that I could do the drive that morning and not go in Monday night. So I did that, and then the next day I had a larger presentation they wanted. But I mean, it was pretty good. I did leave one workshop early, and I was just like, I need a nap. I'm too tired. I can't stay. Because someone came up to me afterwards. They said, "Oh, you left that meeting. You left that one workshop." I'm like, I had a phone call, and then they go, which I did. I got voice messages all the time. But then afterwards, I'm like, I'm not going back in there. Like, oh, they talked about you after that. I'm like, oh, well. If it was bad, I guess I'll find out when I'm fired. Like, no, they were just talking about getting through the pandemic and stuff. And it's like, okay, well. So anyway, did that, and then
it wasn't one of those fun work-related business conferences where they brought in like Q-tier comedians to do all the big stuff, or candy strippers.
Okay, and I don't want to belabor it because obviously most of the listening audience doesn't really care about public health presenters. But this conference, it's the Governor's Public Health Conference is what it's called, and they actually have a sizable budget. So they do bring in like keynoters that are 5 figures in cost. And here's the thing, Tony, and I know some people really, really like this, and I don't think this will come as a surprise to you, but I don't like motivational speakers. Like they really bug me by and large. So they had one keynoter who's actually from the area, and she's a fairly famous principal, and she was good. Like I thought she was inspirational without being really over the top. Like she felt authentic because she actually still works as a superintendent. She started sort of, as a teacher and principal and then became a superintendent. We got her from Missouri a few years ago. And she does a lot on what we call social determinants of health. The first keynoter that we had, though, some ex-cop guy, I walked out. I was just like, he went, the moment he did the whole 3 letters in the desk thing, we've all heard it before. And he didn't tell it like, he didn't make it clear that it was apocryphal. He actually told it like he knew someone where that happened. And I was like, that's like Internet 101. So that was, no, he didn't say anything offensive. It's just like after that, I got up and I'm just like, no. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and act like that story isn't used by every C-tier motivational person in the book. Like I have that one memorized because it's like, because it sounds so good in your head when you think about it.
Right.
So, and I guess I had used him before and it was the same presentation. Someone else told me, they said, oh, I didn't like the first guy. And I said, oh yeah, I walked out on him. And they go, it was the same exact thing he did like 5 years ago when we brought him.
It's because most of those things never change.
Yeah.
It's like the one management one I went to where the guy's telling a story about how he went in and they had to clean house and he fired this guy, and like 4 years later he was getting gas and he saw that guy parked next to him getting gas, and that guy came walking over and he thought he was about to get knocked out, and then the guy hugged him and was like, thank you for firing me, it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, and blah blah blah. Oh.
So, and then the last keynoter was a musician, and okay, all right, yeah, with a guitar.
This is Wonderwall. Did it?
So it actually started strong. He went around because this was during the final lunch. They lunch. This guy presents, and then we leave on the last day. And so he goes around to the tables and he's like, name bands that at least 10 million people would know. So people are like saying things like AC/DC and Garth Brooks and bands or singers. And so he goes and he starts and he just plays a little bit of a song and gets the audience to yell out what band it was. That part was fun. That was 5 minutes of it though. Then he went on, and I think it was supposed to be motivational because he was a music teacher, and he's like playing a lot of his original songs, which were all bad. And I'm just like, and he's talking and he's like messing with, I didn't know the name. I'm not a guitar player. So the camber, the thing that they attach to the neck that hold the frets in a certain position,
I know what you're talking about. I have no idea what it's called.
Right, when you want to configure it for a particular set of chords. Well, he has to keep adjusting this for certain songs. He can't, and I mean, he acknowledged it, so full credit to him knowing where his weaknesses lie, but he couldn't talk and do that at the same time. So he's like messing with this, and he would just have to stop talking. He wouldn't stay in front of he didn't put on a lavalier. He used a mic like we're using here. So he's constantly going off to the side like this and then coming back over to the mic because he's looking over at his computer constantly. I almost walked out of this too.
And he got 5 figures.
I don't know how much he got. But he was a repeat. I'm like, he must have been like that bad before, right?
And you chose to bring him back.
I don't have, and I am on the planning committee, but I don't know any of these people. So I don't want you to blame me. That said, when I get my evaluation, these will be noted by me personally. I will make note of I will make note of every single thing I didn't like. I always do on evaluations.
I need to figure out how to get these keynote jobs. I can be motivational.
And I didn't get paid for my presentation. I was last minute. They were like 2 days before the agenda was published. All of a sudden I got asked, hey, can you talk about how the Kansas legislature is structured and how bills become laws? And I'm like, I've never done that presentation.
They don't.
Please. Yeah, they do. Yeah. If they go to conference with 6 people, boom, there you go. That's democracy in Kansas. So anyway, so I had that. And then also, as you mentioned helping out on a live stream that we did on Friday regarding watches. At the same exact time that the governor's conference is going on, we just got back from TPF. Watches and Wonders Geneva 2023, the biggest watch event that happens every year in the wristwatch world, that's going on. And so it's like all of these major releases from Rolex and Patek and Tudor are dropping, and I'm trying to do coverage, but I'm totally dead by the end of the day. I packed a microphone, and other than the last day, every day I would record videos at night in my hotel room talking about all these new releases because it's the best time for the channel to get views.
I just have this mental image
content.
Of Dennis is teaching a class. He's got one earbud in and Watches and Wonders on his phone, sitting there on the podium as he's walking around doing a class. He's like,
Yeah, thankfully it's not kind of like pinball where they're all like in a conference room and they do the reveal. What they did, at least this year, what they really did is like on day one, all of it was revealed.
Yeah, everything.
And then throughout the rest of the days, they do the talks about them. But we already got to see it. Like they don't wait and put Galactic Tank Force under a sheet and then pull the sheet away. It's like when the event opens, all the sheets are pulled. And then you just wait to hear the interviews. And it's all a media thing until yesterday. Mm-hmm. Yesterday and today are the last 2 days of the event. And this is the first time they opened it to the public. It's a new show. They only started it up a couple of years ago. So it replaced some other shows, Basil World and stuff. But I know we've had people write in before. There are a lot of listeners who do not want to hear about wristwatches. So
understandable.
All I'm just saying is that I've been very busy since TPF, and I want another vacation. So speaking of that, we don't get one yet. We got one last gasp to go over TPF. So let's go into the pinball section. That's all we're really going to talk about other than Rumor Corner. There was a rumor that Tony and I actually talked about while we were at TPF. So we'll end the segment with that. But the way I thought we should do this, Tony, is split it kind of into 2 chunks. I want us to focus really in on the new stuff that we saw, and those sort of fall into 2 categories. There's the stuff that we never really got to try before that how new it is very relative. And then there's the new games where this was like the first show or the near first show. So
right.
We'll end with that. We'll end with the latter. And for those that aren't familiar, so the new stuff, the 6 games everyone sort of agrees on that were new for this show were Foo Fighters from Stern, Godfather from JJP, Pulp Fiction from CGC, Galactic Tank Force from American Pinball, and Final Resistance from Multimorphic. Now that's 5. Scooby is the 6th. Because this was the second show it was at. Granted, It was announced a few months ago. We're also going to go ahead and include a 7th, though. We'll include Queen from Pinball Brothers. While that has been out for a while, this was a big opportunity for a lot of people, in my opinion, to have first experienced it.
Right.
It might have been an expo, but who goes to that? So I wanted to include that in this grouping. And the way we'll do that is we'll rank them. So be thinking about your rank order on those. But before that, let's go ahead and start with the other new stuff, new to us. I'm going to start with an old one, a 10-year-old one that we had never gotten to play before, even though it's been at every TPF we have been to.
Yep.
And that is The Big Lebowski by Dutch Pinball.
We finally got a chance to play it.
We did. It wasn't broken. The line wasn't obscene. We got to get up there. We got to put time on it. Tony, what were your thoughts on The Big Lebowski?
I enjoyed it. It shot pretty well. It had some fun mechanics in it. We all know that there's been a big hullabaloo around the background and the machines actually coming out and people getting the machines that they ordered. But the actual machines themselves, what we played on it, was fun. I had a really good time with it.
And we only played one game on it, and it was okay. I think had I played this 10 years ago, I would have liked the layout more than I do now. And that's
Valid.
not and part of that could be my own evolution of taste, but I think part of it also would be more along the lines of games are just better now than they used to be. It did shoot pretty well. Like, I like the rug toy. I didn't get to the bowling alley, so I can't really comment on that.
I didn't either.
I always read that it was very, very easy to do the bowling alley. But yeah, no, the layout was, I would describe it as simple but effective, and the theme immersion was strong for the game. So I could see why people who are fans of the film in particular would be very partial to this game. It would never be a game that I would be inclined to buy at this point. But yeah, no, it was nice. It was nice to finally get to try it. Yeah, no, I thought it was a competent effort. It's too bad the company has struggled so much to successfully output. And yes, from last I've read, they have still not made all of the pre-orders whole. And I honestly don't know how many more of these they can sell to, where they're doing this process. For those that aren't familiar, they've been doing a process where they sell a certain number of new ones to buyers, and then they make a pre-orderer whole, which it's been working, but it's been working very slowly. Again, this was a game that was revealed, I don't remember, it was near on 10 years ago, I believe. I thought it was around 2012, 2014 maybe. 2014. So maybe 9 years. But anyway, it was neat. Another game we both got to play, a custom game, Dukes of Hazzard. I've seen this one a number of times, a Jake Danzig's game. This is a retheme. Well, I don't want to call it a retheme. It uses the same layout as Paragon, but the rules are entirely different.
Yeah, it is beyond a retheme.
Right. To me, a retheme would just be, we put a new art package on a game. But no, this is all. It's got the Paragon layout, but beyond that, it's custom. What'd you think of the Dukes?
I thought it was a massive improvement over Paragon. It had a lot of fun bits to it. It had some real interesting mechanics. The pop bumper that gives you negative score.
The Beast Slayer.
The Beast Slayer in Paragon is the jail and gives you negative score, and it's great. But having Paragon with a ball save is great.
It was appreciated. Yeah, I agree. I'm not a Paragon fan, and yes, Dukes is a better execution on Paragon.
Yeah.
So the cleverness of saying, when you're in jail and you're hitting that Beast Layer pop bumper, you're going to lose points. I've wanted more games to actually take points away. What games do it other than there was a game where you could gamble it all. I don't remember which one it was, where you could bet points and lose them, but that was the only one that kind of comes to mind. Plus, as an added disincentive, the bonus multiplier or the playfield multiplier that applied to the losses.
Right.
If you had activated, if you built up like a multiplier, that was going to take away on your point. I thought it was a really clever rule. Art looked good. I watched the Dukes when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah. Who didn't?
I don't know, people that were younger than us, I guess.
Well, that's okay. That's valid.
I'm just saying they probably didn't.
That's true. But of our age, it was a common thing.
So that was the only homebrew I played. But you also played the Mech Warrior 5 pinball.
I played the Mech Warrior 5 Mercenary pinball machine. I did include a link for us to put in the show notes that goes to the thread on Pinside about this game. It's my love of BattleTech is well known, but this gentleman is making a completely custom Mech Warrior based game. What's interesting about it is running off of an actual gaming PC because the game is using the Unreal Engine because it's generating on the LCD screen content based upon what's going on the machine. So it's using an Unreal Engine, gaming PC, and an Arduino to generate all of the imagery that you're seeing and to run the actual game. So stuff that's happening in the game is directly shown on the screen. Your mech taking damage, the enemy mech you're fighting taking damage. There's different modes you can activate. There's a series of pop bumpers in the back that correspond with hit locations. So when you're in combat, hitting the The pop bumpers is how you are hitting your targets, and then the damage you cause is based upon your weapons loadout, what you hit, and the normal damage range that the games have for the weapons. So it's randomed into the damage range like you would have in MechWarrior 5. And then the game even has a career mode where you can build a career. You can build up money, go into the mech lab, modify your mech, purchase different mechs, change mechs. It is deeply, deeply involved with a lot of fun stuff going on. It's still pretty early, obviously, but it has a lot of interesting mechanics, a lot of fun stuff being worked on. He's done a lot of work, and it was really, really cool. It even has a 2-player mode where you play simultaneously, where one player is playing the pinball machine, the other player is using an Xbox controller to do support work on the LCD screen while one of them is playing pinball.
Wow. This was more complicated than I realized it was.
Oh, it is super deeply involved. The playfield is a custom acrylic playfield with a wood backing with custom art. This is more than just throwing some stuff together in your garage type thing. This is a deeply involved game with lots of interesting work going on. That's why I included the link to the Penside thread where he talks about it more. I played multiple games on it and talked to him for quite a while, and it is an impressive effort. And as I recall from reading in the thing, I think it took first place for custom pinball at TPF.
Well, congratulations then. So you enjoyed it?
I enjoyed it quite a lot.
Awesome. I do want to go ahead and we didn't play this, so I wasn't thinking to mention it originally. But Turner Pinball, which bought some assets from Deeproot, was there with a prototype of Ninja Eclipse. We did go up and see it. There wasn't really a line for it. It had art, but like you could see where the inserts were supposed to be, but it was just arted over, like solid art over it. Right. As I just noted, we didn't play it. I actually, it wasn't someone with Turner, but someone I was talking to asked me if I wanted to play it, and I said no. And the reason is I don't want to play a prototype because my worry is that it will leave a bad impression in my mind, and it would bias me towards the final version. So as a general, I mean, really, other than homebrews that have chosen to go out there on occasion, and so I have on occasion played a homebrew that is not complete, kind of like MechWarrior is not complete. I don't want to play a prototype.
Right.
I'm worried it will just make me hate it. So
there's the Total Annihilation Whitewood, which is completely different.
Right. But again, at the time when we played what was Total Annihilation, it was thought to be just a homebrew. We weren't expecting it to be a final thing. So it been like, okay, well, the homebrewer thinks that this is something they want to show off. Sometimes I'll try, and there are a lot of homebrews I don't play. Like I didn't play the MechWarrior. I don't usually focus on the homebrews.
Right.
So that just depends. But when it comes to professional, obviously we don't usually see prototypes show up from a professional manufacturer.
You don't want to play the alpha.
Exactly. I would rather not. But anyway, but yes, it was there. Yes, I looked at it. I didn't look at it close enough to say, like, do I have it's a new company. I got all sorts of concerns that move well beyond the anything with a layout, much less the software rule set, which I have I assume is not really developed yet. Now, we did see, of course, Multimorphic was there at the show, and they had one of the P3 systems that I think they were swapping in at least at one point in the show, started putting in third-party modules, because we did get a chance to play Drained, which was Nick Baldridge's creation that he sells through his For Amusement Only games. I'm not sure if that's the full exact title of his company that he set up to do that, but it's an EM style game. It's got a gobble hole in the middle. It's a whole module. It's not just a software package for the P3. It's a whole module that you get in the back. It's got a whole bunch of stand-up targets, and you go about trying to slay what looked like friendly vampires to me. They seemed friendly.
They seemed really nice, so it was really too bad you were killing them all.
Yeah, well, I didn't kill any. You killed one.
I did.
So we both played it. What were your thoughts?
It was fun. It definitely felt like an old EM. So I think a lot of the "it was fun" will count how much you enjoy old EMs. If you don't like that style of game, you probably wouldn't like it as much. But it was very interesting. I liked how they handled a lot of the shots. Again, like I said, feeling old, building up score, then having to use the gobble hole to drop your ball out of play to score. Very old school feel, but still, I mean, it was enjoyable for that style of game.
Okay. It didn't really work for me.
Yeah.
I don't mean like the game didn't work. The game functioned fine. I couldn't really hear it. This is a common thread you're going to find out throughout the show.
That's just a TPF thing.
So I know there was an option to control something with one of the other buttons, but I couldn't. Like I read it on the screen, but I couldn't figure out like what it was. Like I didn't see it do anything, which means one of two things. Three things. One, I just didn't see it doing whatever it was doing, and I missed it. Two, my hand was actually on the wrong button because there are 3 buttons with the P3, and I thought I checked and looked to the side and made sure I picked the right color, but maybe I didn't.
Yeah.
Or 3, I didn't get to wherever that option was. So while I'd hit it from time to time because I'm like, I want to see whatever this is supposed to toggle, so I was just doing it all throughout. The big thing is about it, I think, is when I think about, and I'm not a huge wood rail fan, and I owned one at one point, but the 3-inch flippers feel so weird to me on a game that's this feeling like this era. Like I want it to be 2-inch flippers. I want it to be a weird lower play field. Because that was for me part of the fun with the old EMs is trying just to get control of the ball. With the P3, it's real easy to control the ball.
Yes, it is. I hadn't thought about that.
And I think that's what a lot of it is that lower section is just, it's very open, of course, because of the design of the system.
Right.
And so everything is just in the back, and there's a lot up there. That like his module has a lot to do up there. But like when it came to wanting to focus on the gobble hole, my horrid accuracy aside, ball control was easy.
Right.
And so to me, that was anachronistic to it. So I think that was probably part of why it wasn't clicking in a way like it wouldn't be something I would be inclined to buy, but I've enjoyed it more than some of the other modules. Like I had more fun on this than I did Cosmic Kart Racing, which granted we had originally played that before the rules were fully fleshed out in Cosmic Kart. The art though was a standout for me. I don't know. I really liked the art package on it. It's very different, but and Tony knows this, and I probably commented on this before. I'm a real big fan of black and white art packages in general. Like I really like the Munsters art package that Franchi did for the premiums, and so this being so black and white, and it's just a different drawing style. I actually aesthetically really really enjoyed it. But we'll be talking about another P3 game here later when we get to the what we call the new games, the main new games that were revealed. Only other ones I wanted to touch on is Haggis had a booth. They had Celts and Fathom Revisited, which we had both played Fathom, the original, before a number of times.
Several times.
And so we got a chance to do both of those. I actually got to play them multiple times. And let's start with Celts. Tony, any thoughts on that? Obviously, Celts came out quite a while ago, but they had a couple there. We got to play some Highland games. What'd you think?
I was very meh on it. I was indifferent to it. It was okay. There was nothing. It didn't really excite me or interest me in any way. It didn't. I've definitely shot worse games, and I didn't hate it, but overall, I just didn't care.
Yeah, it's not a bad game. But like I liked Drained more than I liked Celts.
Yes.
But I don't dislike Celts that much more than Drained. For me, the upper area, I don't want to call it an upper playfield because it's really not, but the upper area of Celts, I enjoyed that part when I could be up in there. Mm-hmm. My main issue with Celts is the Silver Ball Mania vibe going on with a horseshoe in the center. And this is harder than Silver Ball Mania. With Silver Ball Mania, I had a game on Silver Ball Mania where I think I spent 10 minutes on one ball just horseshoeing for no other reason than to prove I could. But which doesn't mean, it doesn't mean a lot because I'm sure all the top level players like, you got to be kidding. Silver Ball Mania's horseshoe is like the easiest, safest feed ever. I mean, they got it all set up so it didn't cheat you or anything. It's just It's a short, lower play field, but it doesn't feel like there's much to do because the horseshoe, you can shoot the right side, it comes out the left. You can shoot the left side, that comes out the right. You've got the big open scoop in the middle. And so it's narrowed, but it doesn't have like that ferociousness that TNA does. So, so that, the rules seemed okay and all of that, but just based off of layout, it's not my style of game. So it'd be, again, it's okay, but it's never anything I would buy.
Right.
Fathom Revisited, though. Okay, so we got to play it with the new rules, the new effect. All right, it's a beautiful game.
It's amazing to look at.
It looks. I think its visual acuity is well captured in photos. So going up to it, I knew it was going to look really good. I liked the new rules. Actually, I really liked it. Of all the games I played, including all the new games we're going to talk about, this was the only game that really got my pulse up. Because it's been a few years since I had played regular Fathom, and I shouldn't have forgot, but I forgot just how brutal that layout was.
It is definitely going to wreck you.
My desperation to keep control, the constant mental frustration of, okay, remember the outlanes are the inlanes and the inlanes are the outlanes, except you can still lose the ball out of the outlane inlane because if it's not going fast enough, it's going to go and triple out and bounce off the little wire form. So it actually stressed me more than any other game. I liked the screen, and Celts has this too, but I liked the screens in the lockdown bar.
Yeah.
I thought, interesting idea. So now you don't have to deal with it being in the, I think, placement wise, I prefer the highway or the P3 or the, having the screen more where the ball is in play, but having it on the lockdown bar is still way easier than looking up at the back box.
Right.
So I thought, and then you don't have to deal with, we have to have a thing that keeps, like the highway games, you have to level the little acrylic plate over the, there's a seam where the screen would be, so you have to deal with a seam, and they avoid that with this. And I did get the multi-ball. I got, did a couple modes. I think I played Fathom Revisited 3 or 4 times at the show. It was fun. I could see owning it.
The thing is if you own it and have it in your collection, it's going to look beautiful even when you're not playing it, because the art pack is just so good.
I don't have enough time on it to know if there's if you were someone highly limited on space, let's say you could only have maybe 2 pinball machines. I don't know if it's strong enough to stand on its own. The brutality would keep you coming back. So the idea, it's got the one more game feel aspect to it. But if you're looking for a deep adventure, I'm not sure that even the new rules are going to give you that level of depth. But with a collection like my size, which when you're up at a half dozen games or more, things like that. I have games that are shallower than that. I've got Buck Rogers, I've got Sinbad. Very straight. I have the space to accommodate a couple of brutal games. Also, I want to say this for this game, and I'm assuming Celts did the same thing. Whatever they made the playfield out of, that it felt fine and it looked great.
Looks
plastic good. Or whatever. I did not notice any weird behavior with the balls. The mechanics on the games felt good. The drops felt good. The flippers felt great.
Everything felt amazing on that game.
It felt really good. I'm a little disappointed I didn't consider it more when it was first revealed. But I'd never played a Haggis game and I didn't know what to expect.
Well, and that's an understandable thought process.
Anyway, it feels weird because it's also an older game that already exists with a known proven layout, but it's impressive. It was impressive. I would recommend, if you get a chance to try it, I would say try it.
I am liking like what this did, like what we've seen with Texas Canyon Revisited, what we've seen with Attack from Mars, Medieval Madness, all that stuff. Taking a well-known solid machine, new builds with modern techniques, modern refinements, so that it looks even better than it looked before. And in this case, rules, just like on Cactus, new rules that help flesh out a game from what it was originally. I do not hate this trend. I rather kind of like this trend because it feels like all you're doing is taking classics and putting more polish on them. And I am okay with that. And because this game was, like you said, it was incredibly fun. Looks amazing. Everything about it was it was better than I expected. I went into it with no real good expectations. I kind of figured that, okay, it'll at best, it'll be Fathom. But it's not. It is definitely a notch above that.
Yeah, of all the ones, and that was the last one of our kind of not main quote unquote new games that we're going to talk about here. This would be the one that I would buy of all the ones we just talked about. Granted, I haven't played MechWarrior 5.
Right.
And that's not going to have an option to buy anyway.
True.
So I guess the custom games don't really count, but it is the one I would get. Okay, so that was fun. Were there any that I mentioned that I didn't mention that you thought I need to, or you wanted to bring up?
No, because I think all the other ones, I mean, we played some really nice older games here and there, but it's all stuff, it's all more standard stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing exceedingly different or weird or special.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and let's hit the main games that everyone what you all have been asking, what you all have been emailing us or messaging us or Patreoning us about. It's a verb. It's fine.
Just verb all the words.
Yeah, just verb them.
Verb them.
So I'm trying to think. I don't know what the best way to do this is. We might see some divergence. So I'm going to have you lead off. Let's go from best to worst.
Okay.
And we'll just go through our ranked order because I know from us talking, we might be pretty similar on a number of these. Some of them might shuffle a little bit, and that's okay. And I will say before starting, by and large, if I were to describe this set of 7 games, they're good. Like, by and large, I left with more positives than negatives.
Yeah.
But for me, the way it's going to work is essentially once we get to the top 4 games are all really, in my opinion, pretty strong. And then for me, number 5 on down is where the negatives start to really weigh it down. But everyone's mileage may vary. So
right.
I'll let you go ahead and start up. What was your, of these games, what was your number 1 pick?
Kind of a surprise to me, in all honesty. Not the one I figured going into the show. Foo Fighters.
Okay.
I'm a fan of the band Foo Fighters. I was a fan of the art, and I thought the game looked okay. But actually playing that game was a ton more fun than I had expected. I figured it would be high on my list, but I did not expect it to be like the number 1 on my list, and it is. It is the game that, of all of these, I think it's the one that I went back to the most. It is the one of all of these that I would most like to have myself.
You did play both the premium and the pro version. Which one did you like more of those?
Oh, the premium.
Okay.
And that's not always with the case with
true.
me.
That's true.
But in this case, I liked the premium a lot. And it was, like I said, it was very, very enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, that's my number 1 pick also. Premium Foo Fighters, followed by Pro.
Yeah.
And the way it played was really good. There's a lot of flow to that game. The things that Jack Danger has done, the change-ups that he's incorporated, like the kicking target that could fire like up a ramp or whatnot off on the kind of mid-right side was a cool thing. I did try and do the Shatz targets, was unsuccessful at that, but on the premium version, I was able to use the overdrive like dead bounce post and get the ball back into play. That was sort of a neatish idea. The rules seemed straightforward. The volumes, of course, again, as we noted earlier when I was talking about Drained, I couldn't really hear the game. Musically, I don't care because I'm not into Foo Fighters. But like in terms of being able to figure it out, I had to rely on the screen to tell me, and I was able to get my multi balls and realize what shots I needed to do and make progress. And yeah, I played it several times, and I had good fun with it. If I were to pick between the two, yeah, premium I don't know if I do it just for the post at the bottom, though that is fun.
Right.
I do wonder that that's going to make it play a little longish, but some of the other, like the toys and stuff that were going on, you do get that upper play field, which has a couple of shots on it. I wasn't particularly enamored with it, but the flow was really good overall. So while I don't necessarily love the shots per se at the upper play field, the overall package I thought worked better as the premium. And it was a lot of fun to shoot, and the rules seemed approachable. And yeah, it's my pick of the show.
Yeah, it had a I don't want to say weird, but it for a band pen, it had a great, just kind of fun story thing going on to it. It wasn't just the normal, this is a concert type thing. And it had a very, I want to say, pinball-y feel. It felt like it kind of had that kind of different feel that I think really helped for a game that already shot so well to also have not just be, it's a concert, or like Elvis, where it's just shoot random Elvis stuff. So, no, right. I loved it.
Okay. All right. What was your second best pick?
Pulp Fiction.
Okay.
Going in, I expected Pulp Fiction to be my number one pick for a variety of reasons. But it is number two because Foo Fighters was just so good. We only got the one time on Pulp Fiction. Maybe if we'd had more than one.
We were in line for about 15 minutes, and those lines were bad the entire show when we checked them.
Like when we went in early on Saturday morning, I don't remember which morning.
Probably Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday morning when we went in early then, we got like multiple games on Foo Fighters.
Yeah, there was no one behind us.
No one behind us. And we walked in the door and there was already massive lines on Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is probably down to the quantity they had available.
Yeah. But, I mean, Pulp Fiction was fun. It was enjoyable. It did kind of have a modern, old school cross feel to it. A lot of the things looked really, shot well. I enjoyed what time I had on it, and it feels like a game that I could put a fairly large amount of time on. And the only thing I have, like everything at TPF, I couldn't hear nothing. I don't think there was. I think the only game I really was able to have, like really, really hear, was the bell when we played Fire that one time. TPF overall seemed even louder than normal this year.
Well, Pulp Fiction was not my second pick. I'll talk about my opinions on the game when we get to my rank on it. But my second pick was Final Resistance, Multimorphics game, the Scott and Nisi game, TNA 2.0, the true 2.0. This was a game I could actually hear this one because it's Scott, and he's probably got the music turned to 11. And it sounded a lot like TNA. Fan layout. It's the P3. All the shots are in the back. It is a new module. He only used 2 flippers. He didn't use the other upper flippers that are possible on the system. I didn't successfully use it, but he did have a menu option where you could like use an item, and it seemed understandable. I just sort of forgot to use my hack when I looked at it at the start of one of my balls. I only played it one time, but I did have a decent length of time on it. Much like TNA, there are a lot of fast returns, like scoop returns. I got the multi-ball started. The toy is, I think, fairly straightforward. Like we've seen more fancy engineered toys, in my opinion, like the Cosmic Kart Racing electromagnetic ball lock, for example, and such on some of the other modules. But it fires it out really fast, and it's cool. It's cool looking. I remember hearing from Scott mention that I want to bring up 2 things. So one item was he was on on one of Flippin' Out's streams that I was asked to participate on, a YouTube stream, and I asked him if he liked this game more than TNA, and he said that he felt Final Resistance was better than TNA, and having played it, that may be true. I think that I think the shots feel a little better. There's a TNA is a good game. Obviously, I owned it. I chose to own it. But there were a few shots on it that I wasn't super enamored with. Like, there's a little bit of clunk to some of the aspects of the design. Like, I didn't like the right orbit shot. I always thought it felt weird. And then there wasn't a lot of control in the upper section, which was by design, but it was a little frustrating trying to hit those like 1, 2, 3 targets. Whereas with this, because it was more of a fan layout, I was able to find the shots a lot easier. You also, even though the ball firebacks were really, there were some returns that I almost lost the ball on. Because they're all in the back, I did have more reaction time. Not as much as most designers would give me. Like, Scott gives me less time.
Right.
But the sheer fact that there's more distance meant I had more reaction time by default. So that helped me enjoy the game quite a bit. And then the other thing that he'd mentioned a couple of times is his decision to really keep the art by and large on the system screen static like a normal play field, and made it look like a normal, like with inserts, like it looks like there are inserts, and he's got little effects that are occasionally doing stuff, but keeps it super static. And I thought that made it so much better for me, so much better. And and that's I don't know if I'd say controversial, but like I saw someone else who's a fan of the P3 system say that they didn't like that tactic because what differentiates it as a P3 thing if you're making it like a normal pinball machine. And I think that's a fair point, because the reason why, in a large part, this is number 2 and not number 1 is I want this to be a traditional pinball machine because it could be. There's no reason. The person was right. Other than like using the item thing, which in theory we could probably solve, there's no reason for this to be a P3. This could be a traditional pinball game. And that's what I want. I don't want it to look like a phone game. I want it to be a traditional pinball game. That's what Scott gave me. But because so much of it is sort of straight out of the TNA handbook, I couldn't put it above Foo Fighters. Even though I think this has got a lot of flow. It is a fan layout. It's using a lot of things that I think we knew worked from TNA and were just repackaged. And that's fine. Again, it's my number 2 game.
Yeah.
But so I liked it a lot, but it didn't have the same level of uniqueness that Foo Fighters brought. So it's my number 2. But I don't really have anything I would point to as a flaw with it. Like, if you like what I've described, then you should like Final Resistance. If you don't like fast games, just stay away from this one. Stay away from this one. All right. What was your third game?
Third game, Godfather. Except for that part, which is fine.
We could hear that one time.
You could hear the one time. You could definitely hear that.
It was hard to hear Godfather too.
Yeah, but no, it is. It's a beautiful game. It's shot really well, a lot better. It's probably the best shooting JJP, or if not the best, it's top 2. I will say that it is the first JJP game I've truly, really enjoyed since Dialed In. I probably actually like it more than Dialed In.
Okay.
So that would flat out put it as my favorite JJP game. But it is a game that I went into it expecting it to be a JJP game. And it is in a lot of ways, but it felt better than what most of them normally do. And it didn't give me the annoyed feeling like when we play Wonka or Toy Story, where it's like, I gotta go play this one when it comes up in tournament play. I actually enjoyed some of the stuff. I liked the kind of world building type thing they designed for it. I thought it was enjoyable, and it gave depth to something that I really did not think would work well in this format. I still don't think it's necessarily the best choice, but it looks good. The stained glass motif was beautiful, like I've been saying since I first saw it. It looks great in person. And overall, I really enjoyed it.
Okay. My number 3 ranked game was Pulp Fiction. So you've touched on a lot about the game already. Because we only got a chance to play it once, and it was by far our longest wait to play it, my issue with it is, and my caveat, and again, these are just first thoughts, obviously not reviews. We didn't play any of these enough to give good reviews. The game really kicked my butt, so Like, I didn't really find my shots very well on it, so my opinion on this game could change a lot. I still don't have a good read on the layout. Given it's hard, and I often like games that are kind of mean to me. I think I'm comfortable keeping it at number 3, but it might change over time as I get more experience with it. What I like and respect about the game is that it's kind of gone with like a late 80s throwback look at first, but then when you start to play it, it's got clear features that are modern. I've seen some people complain about the game looking like it's like people will say, "Oh, it's a throwback game," and then people get upset. And it's like, no, it's got this and this. Like, it's got a subway and it's got this part, and that's not throwback stuff. And I think that's fair. But when you look at it, it gives you the impression, oh, look, you're looking at a System 11. And then when you play it, it gives you a different experience. So I think the idea, I really wish I could have heard it. See, I couldn't hear the call outs. And so, but I overall, given what I experienced with it, and I was able to understand what I was trying to do rules-wise from it, especially because I was watching, we played in a group of 3, so I was able to watch the displays and stuff and the instructions as we were going along. So overall, yeah, I didn't see anything really negative with it, but because I didn't have a good length of ball time on it and couldn't get more tries on it, I just sort of by default have to put it below Foo Fighters and Final Resistance. But it still remains the one that intrigues me the most of all of these games, just because it looks so different from anything else that we're currently seeing out of pinball. So, okay, so now we go to rank number 4. What was your 4th favorite?
My 4th favorite was Final Resistance. I ranked it farther down than you did because while I enjoyed it, like you said, it felt like it could have easily been just a regular pinball machine in a regular table, and it felt like, if anything, it was harmed being tied into the P3 architecture.
Harmed in what way?
Just because you've got the cost and the history requirements for it.
Oh, you mean like harmed on sales?
Yes, harmed on sales.
I agree.
Not harmed like the game was harmed.
Okay, I wondered if there was an aspect to the system that you didn't like the flipper feel or something.
No. I mean harmed by what it does to the cost of what I feel like that game in a standard cab would be cheaper than
yes.
than a P3 with the module by a chunk.
He would sell more if it had been made by another company.
Yeah, because it feels like Final Resistance in a standard cab, even if it was at 9, would sell a lot more, just because the architecture of the multimorphic architecture, people don't. There are people who just flat will not buy into that architecture, which means there's a lot of people who could really enjoy this game who flat won't ever even play it. I enjoyed it. It like with you, it struck all the right points. I just feel like it wasn't given the chance to be everything it could have been.
Okay, I see where you're coming from. My rank 4 game is Godfather. So now I think we've each covered all of the stuff that each of us have talked about in these 4. Godfather looks great. Animations as usual are cool. I could understand the rules on this. Even though I think this has fewer multi-balls than Guns N' Roses does, it sure seemed relatively easy to get into the multi-balls still, which is not a favored feature of mine when it comes to the JGP games. I enjoyed what I shot on it. This might be the fastest playing JJP that they've made. It's definitely Eric Minier's fastest player, in my opinion. I don't know yet. I did get a few games on it, but I don't know if I would put it above Dialed In, but I definitely would put it at number 2 if it's not number 1 in my list of games. It is very strong. My biggest issue, and this is a minor issue, because again, I think this is a very well-presented game, was because it's got like these 20, they're really emphasizing the number of different ball returns. Even though this is faster than some other JJP games, there's a lot because of the diverters and the mechs, like going behind the bash toy guy that you fight and stuff. Like, this isn't that fast of a game. And I tend to I like games with more speed than what this offered. So Well, I look at this and they kept the pricing the same as they did for Toy Story 4. And I think when people look at this game, they're going to feel like there's more money on the playfield than there was when they look at Toy Story 4. It's not fast enough for it to be a game that I would want to own, but it is a game I wouldn't mind facing in tournament. So like I would look forward to playing this on location, assuming we get one. But so yeah, overall I enjoyed the game quite a bit. It's just because of the speed of the game and such. Everything else, as I mentioned, Foo Fighters, flowy. Final Resistance, flowy. Pulp Fiction, brutal. This wasn't all that brutal, and it wasn't super fast. So it's just not my style of game like that I lean towards. But overall, I thought it was a very, very good package by Jersey Jack. So what do you rank as your fifth? This is where, for me, the negatives start to really outweigh the positives. So everything, like my top 4 games are like, if this meets what you want, definitely try these games out because I think they're good. Now we're going to get to where my opinions are more mixed for a little bit and then start to skew much more negative.
Yeah, it is at 5. I'm going to go with Queen.
So did I.
It shoots fine. I mean, I enjoyed the shots. It probably would have been better if I could have heard the music.
Yeah, we couldn't hear it.
We couldn't. Now we talked to people who played it at points when they could hear the music, and they said it was that music call outs and all that stuff were really good. Just I couldn't hear any of it while I was playing. But overall, it shot fine. It's nothing special. I don't think I would add it to like a personal collection. But it definitely didn't have any big negatives compared to what I figured Pinball Brothers game would be.
Yeah, it's I have it here kind of in the middle of the pack because my stance on it was fairly mixed, acknowledging like Tony did that I couldn't really hear it. The ball times, like the shots felt better than Alien. They were okay. I didn't like the slings, sort of a plasticky feel to them. Toy-like. I don't know, again, if that was the show and power or what. I felt like my ball times on the game were decent.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that the left side shot better than the right-hand side. Like, I enjoyed that more. I wasn't enamored with the upper playfield aspect at all once I figured out how to get up there. But it seemed straightforward and approachable. The rules were easy to understand, not particularly complex in any way, though. It just kind of, if I were to do a comparison, it would be kind of back on our other stuff. It kind of had some Big Lebowski-esque aspects, but I think Big Lebowski's layout's better than Queen.
Yes.
And so because of that, I'm just kind of like, if you're a huge Queen fan, I don't think this game's going to be like a miss for you, but outside of that, there's just stronger things that we've already talked about. So yeah, it was okay. It didn't really do anything for me, but it didn't offend me either. It was just like, oh, okay, well, if I were to see it, would I put money in it on location? Maybe $1.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't invest a lot of time in it.
And not in a location where you couldn't hear nothing.
Right. But also, if someone was like, hey, let's play Queen, I wouldn't go, oh my God, no. So
I forfeit.
Again, meh. I put it as meh.
Yeah.
All right. 6th.
GTF.
Exclamation point.
GTF.
Galactic Tank Force, American Pinball. Okay. This one had a lot of buzz.
It had a lot of buzz.
Lead them up to the show.
And I've talked to people. I talked to people at the show who genuinely loved this game. They loved everything about this game. I had problems dialing in my shots on it. It felt very clunky, but that 100% could be me. The build quality, like we concerned from the pictures, looked very terrible in person on some of the toys. They were very obvious 3D prints that didn't look that good, in my opinion. I definitely feel like they went all in on the camp, and for me, it went too far. It went too far. It went from being so bad it's good to so bad it's bad. I have had people. I couldn't hear the call-outs. I could hear the stuff that actively made my ears bleed and made me want to walk away from the game. There was very loud ear piercing, like someone was jamming an ice pick into my ears sound effects when you hit certain things, and the pews and this and that actively made me want to walk away from the game. I hated it so bad. And that's something that was the most annoying thing, is I couldn't hear anything except for those, and they made me want to just shut it off. Mm-hmm. So I'm more than willing to put some more plays onto it when it gets somewhere where I can play it, where it will hopefully not cause me to want to be deaf, and we'll see. But it just nothing felt right when I played it. And that, I don't know how much of that is just that I couldn't get the shots dialed in or it felt weird, and how much of that is an issue with the game itself. But those sound effects were way too much, and all the stuff that was supposed to be super campy, cutesy just was annoying.
Yeah, GTF was my 6th game also. And after we had played it, the last day of the show, actually, I ran into Steve Bowden, and I spoke very, very briefly with him about the game, and he said, with a game like with a theme like Galactic Tank Force, you gotta lean into the camp, right? You just gotta lean into it. And I'm like, yes, you can't take that game serious, but I wonder if they went too far, like if they found the line and actually were able to cross it, which I wasn't even, until I saw this, necessarily thought that was possible, to make a game too campy that had to be campy. But that's not the biggest issue. It's the blend of stuff. It's, unless people can get a lot of time on it, like, again, you being the sort of very generous individual that you are, willing to give it another chance. When you first approach it, it's a cacophony of different stuff that hits you, and none of it seems to tie together, at least on first blush, and it makes a very unattractive package when you think about that. So like the art's cool, you see this sci-fi retro thing, you plunge the ball, and you're hit with dubstep, which doesn't fit the era that this looks like. So you're like, okay, well, that doesn't make sense. So we've already got some sort of an anachronism going on with that. As you noted, there were some piercing, shrill sounds that were cutting. Like, all I could hear was dubstep and these piercing. I don't know if it was like in the pop. I think it was the pop bumpers and maybe the
it was
slings,
like a pew pew and all this
whatever
other.
It was like so shrill, like pumping out little tweeters out of the speakers, that it hurt. It hurt, but you couldn't hear the call-outs. You couldn't hear the clips. There's one part where things got a little quiet, like the games beside me were also quiet, and I heard one little part where one of the call-outs was happening, and it's telling me like I could leave, but I could leave my cows and milk or something. And I thought, okay, that might be fun, like that part, the campy, like DVD 90s Wing Commander. Let's all act. We're in a video game, but let's act really bad because it's a video game.
Right.
That sort of level of camp, that might be working. When you can't hear it, I'm sorry, I'm getting animated, I'm bumping stuff. When you can't hear it, it's really tough. So again, that's a show setting thing. The rules seemed okay. Like what I could experience of the rules, I was like, well, they didn't make any sense. Like why am I gathering milk? I'm guessing that has to do with the ice cream, whatever. I don't know, but I could figure out like these shots advance these things. So I understood the rules. So the rules seemed okay. Maybe good. I don't have enough time to say that they're good, but they seemed okay. Layout did not work for me. What I experienced of that layout was very challenging for me. And I spoke to someone else at the show. I won't name them because they actually compared the layout to Thunderbirds. And ouch. I was like, okay, I've never played Thunderbirds because the one time I was at TPF, it was broken and I didn't get a chance to play it. So I can't make that comparison. But what I can say is of all of the games I played, I liked this layout the least, and that includes the other stuff like talking back to Celts and things like that. No, this one was my least favorite layout currently, and I'm not going to say that the layout is so off of what I want that the rules couldn't make it acceptable, but I don't think that layout would ever be great for me. I don't think it's my layout. So because of that, I was disappointed. I'm of two minds. I would really like to see, like, they could rebalance the sound, like make it not so piercing and stuff. Those things can be fixed. Right. And so I kind of want to try it again, but I also, based off of my experience, like, don't want to encounter it. Does that make sense? Like, I'm really torn. And the problem this is where, like, as us who commentate on the hobby, coming in, I'm like, I think this doesn't leave a great impression, and I don't know how many they sell, because if you have to invest a lot of time to figure out this doesn't have a license to sell off of, so if you have to invest a lot of time to like get behind all the choices they made, that's not a good thing. That's not a good marketing thing. That's unfortunate that it takes that much to get it. And so just based off of the first impressions of what we were able to experience, it's a hard no for me. But it wasn't my worst game.
No.
And it wasn't yours either, because we have one more. We have our 7th ranked game. Tony, what's your 7th ranked game?
It's Scooby-Doo.
Okay. Where are you? Write into collectorgamerspodcast@gmail.com if you really want to take issue with our opinions, because obviously we were pretty critical of GTF, and we're now saying this game's worse. Because
it is, in our opinion.
So why? Tell the listeners why for you, Tony.
One, somehow this game is even worse on the sound than GTF.
Chomp. Those are Scooby snacks for those that don't know.
It was so bad. And the game, I thought Toy Story was super easy and boring to play. And then I played Scooby-Doo and found out that I had been wrong. Toy Story is far more interesting. Because Scooby is just... I drained, and it was like, oh, thank God I drained. It's over. We can go somewhere else now. And no game should ever give me that feeling. Especially a game that is so tied into such a beloved... a franchise, something that has so brought so many people together over the years. I think it looks great. I think it is a theme that should have worked wonderfully. And in reality, it's not fun. I had zero fun playing that game. Even discounting how bad the sounds were, I had no fun playing that game. But the sounds were, if anything, even worse than GTF. It just drove me insane.
Yeah, I mean, you've touched on all the major things I think I was going to stress. So, all right, first of all, they brought a lot of them, which was good. You couldn't hear the call-outs, and they've got great voice actors doing the call-outs. So again,
they do.
That's a show thing. So unfortunate that we can't really, because I think / hope at least that would have been a thing to really highlight. The art's great but we already knew that because we can, we have eyeballs and we saw the photos.
Correct.
So we knew the art was good. It was such a weird hodgepodge of just, it's like if I were to take all of its categories, it's not at the bottom of every single, I think, all right. I'll start with the sound because you really emphasized that. So yes, the sound was a bigger problem. The sound was more annoying than GTF's sound.
Yes.
Now, I could hear more, I could hear the music of GTF. And I thought it was weird that they went with dubstep, but I could, once I went okay, well, it doesn't fit, but whatever, we're going to do dubstep and fight tanks. I could accept that. And it was just the shrill things that just to me sound like they just need to scale back the decibels by 20 on those and it'll be okay. This just every sling is a boing, and every Scooby snack, and there are a lot of Scooby snacks, is a chomp. And I'm just boy, I think I don't, I'm pretty sure while I was playing it, I got to the point where I started randomly going boing, 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 chomp, chomp, boing. Was I? Okay.
You did.
I thought I was. I apologize to those nearby.
And you did after we walked away too.
Boing, boing, chomp, chomp, boing. And I was just no. And there have been other games that the tinkling glass and Alice Cooper's Nightmare Castle kind of set my teeth on edge too. Though it wasn't as bad in real life as it was when I watched a video and someone was doing direct audio output. This was real life in a loud show where I can't hear the call outs, but I can hear my chomp chomp boing boings. So it's already setting my teeth on edge. The layout is very forgiving. Now, part of this is Spooky's fault. These games, they had 8 there. They should not have left these at Stock Factory. The gameplay was taking way too long. I don't know, because I didn't time it, obviously, because I didn't know how long it would be. But I think it seemed like my first ball, which was my longest, was probably around 5 minutes.
Easily.
For a game I had never played before. And I got a little sloppier by design in my play after that because, like you, I was kind of getting to where I don't feel like I need to. One, I feel bad because there's a line behind me, and I don't want to, I'm not trying to GC these things. And second, one ball was probably enough, quite frankly. The layout, is the layout better than GTF's layout? It depends what you want. So there are so many horseshoes on this layout. I made fun of that at one point. The Patreon members know that I have a baby's first 4 horseshoes that I did. You can be a Patreon member for as low as $1 a month if you want to see that. And because I'm like, wow, there's like 2 horseshoes down below and there's 2 horseshoes up top. I think I heard an interview with, I think it was Carl D'Angelo. I think he was on a podcast where he said, actually, there's like a pseudo horseshoe also up top. So it really feels more like there are 5. And you feel all of those. They're very safe. They're not particularly fast. Even though the game is wide, I will say Spooky did do a decent job keeping the lower section to feel kind of like a standard body. It more so than I thought they would. But once I was up in the upper playfield, that was floaty, super floaty. Maybe it was just the copy we played, but while the bookcase diverter flipper was cool,
cool.
I liked the implementation of that. That was good. I didn't like being up there, and it was easy to stay up there, pretty easy. And obviously that was completely safe, but the lower playfield was pretty safe too. And the flippers didn't feel good, the slings didn't feel good. The flippers didn't feel horrible, but again, this is a show, so low power situations, But the rules were straightforward, but boring. I thought that just the whole strategy of what you needed to do, because I was on it for so long, I'm just like, it feels like wood chopping. And that some people like that style. So again, that's just a stylistic thing, but it's just like the strongest thing I could say for Scooby is as a theme that could also appeal to children, not just adults. Maybe it's better to do it like this than say what Stern did with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and have a really brutal layout. So this, I think kids could have a good ball time on this, but I don't think overall it's a very good pinball experience. I'm rating it below GTF.
Yeah.
And GTF left a lot to be desired in my gameplay, and sound aside, it was really because of the layout. But this, the sounds were worse. The layout was because of the floatiness and stuff. I enjoyed shooting GTF more than Scooby, and I think your mileage will vary on that depending on what you're looking for. But I just didn't think it was a strong game aside from theme.
Right, theme's great. As a part-time, when I feel like an occasional tournament player, I fear this game being at tournament venues.
They would have to change the setting. They'd have to make it brutal in some way. You were at a tournament a few weeks ago, and I know right. You were at a tournament a few weeks ago, and what was it? Was it Toy Story 4?
It was Toy Story 4.
Which made the whole night drag on?
Yep. Every other game would be done except for Toy Story 4.
And Toy Story 4, I think we would both agree, is more brutal than Scooby was.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
and and there were points in time where everybody except for the 4 players on Toy Story 4 were sitting down for 15, 20 minutes waiting for Toy Story 4 to finish.
And so, it's, I just didn't like it. I don't know. That's why it's last on my list.
No, it is just nothing. I've talked to multiple people who were like, yeah, I didn't even want to plunge ball 3, or I just plunged ball 3 and walked away.
I spoke with some people who, by and large, who try and have a very positive view. Like sometimes I don't want to be overly negative, but I always want to be honest because I don't think it's right to act like that you enjoyed something when you don't.
Right.
But I know some people who really try and find the positives in things, and they really struggled, aside from what we touched on, like art package and the voice actor recruitment, like they really struggled to say nice things about how this played. But again, it's done well on sales, and so just because we don't like it, if it's your style of game, give it. I always say give it a shot, no matter what we think, give it a shot. But If I never play it again, I will be happy.
Yeah, no, I'm perfectly fine with never.
So I was just, I mean, I hoped for more.
We had multiple occasions on that one because they brought so many that we could have played it again, and we didn't.
Here's the thing. I would rather play Halloween.
That's so rough.
I think Scooby's layout is better. I do. I think my biggest frustration with Halloween is I think it's a bad layout. And I don't like Scooby's layout. It's not, like, design-wise, I think it's a better layout. But the thing is, Halloween sounds don't annoy me.
Yeah.
And this with the chomps and everything else, and I thought anyway, it's a close thing, but that's my stance.
Yeah, definitely not. They were definitely, of the big new games, they were the loser by far.
All right, that concludes our TPF 2023 coverage. And before we hop over to the video game segment,
we hop over to
Tony's pointing
Rumor Corner.
Oh, he's pointing at me.
Just to let people know, because I got a ton of questions while we were at TPF. My little collapsible stool that I used to survive in the enormous lines is like the number one collapsible stool on Amazon. If you just search collapsible stool, it's right there. And it's great. It's just a little tiny plastic disc that expands and makes a decently comfortable chair that's a way better than standing when you're in line for an hour.
Yes, your Claymore.
My Claymore. Somebody wondered if I had a Claymore on my chest because I was walking around with it slung over my neck by its strap.
Mm-hmm.
So...
All right. Well, with that important PSA out of the way, let's go ahead and hop into Rumor Corner.
Rumor Corner. Rumor Corner. Rumor Corner. Rumor Corner. Rumor Corner. Dennis Creasel's got the news before Napa Cave. Ain't that right, Tony? Yeah.
Okay, on today's Rumor Corner, we have received a rumor that Stern is actually going to do 3 games this year. Now, we haven't heard that there being a bunch of Decepticons and that they're going to be 3 cornerstones. The rumor is that they do have a boutique planned this year. Now, I mentioned earlier that Tony and I talked about this while we were at TPF because I know Tony's speculation was, we didn't hear what game. And Tony's speculation was, well, not Back to the Future because we're getting closer to the next major anniversary of it, but that's not this year. So
yeah, because that would be 2 years from now.
So that was my understanding. So given that, I don't. Do you have any speculation? Again, this would be speculation. The rumor is just that there will be a boutique.
I really have no idea. Some of the boutiques seem so out of left field to me that I don't know.
And so, yeah, I won't venture a guess either. People can write in at eclecticgamerspodcast@gmail.com if they think they know what the boutique is. But anyway, so not much of a rumor, but did it rumortain you?
Sure.
Okay, well, I don't care. Video games. What's going on?
There is video game stuff. I don't have a whole lot because I knew pinball would be huge this week. Lots all that. So we'll go to the big things. E3 is canceled. It's gone. Ubisoft and Tencent both announced that they were not going to be at E3, and almost immediately afterwards, E3 canceled because by that point in time, Ubisoft was the last major publisher who hadn't already pulled out. So I think it's dead.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that because I think that's the only thing to say is, so was this the last gasp of E3? Will they just like formally just be like, we're not a thing now?
I don't see how they can come back from this. They've been without having a physical show since before COVID. The digital shows have not gone over well. And in these years between, all of the major publishers are now doing their own digital. They all have their own digital presentations that most of them do multiple times a year. And they seem to be preferring that format. Because that was Sony's plan. Even during E3, they weren't going to be at E3, but they were going to do a digital drop during the week of E3. EA was doing the same thing. Nintendo does their Nintendo Directs like 7 times a year now. So I just think that what E3 has been supplanted at this point, and I don't think they're going to be able to claw it back to being what it was. Can they take the E3 existence and what it is and create something else that's not like an industry show? Can they turn it into like a fan show? Maybe. It is now owned and being run by the same groups that do the PAXs, which are very hugely popular. But I just don't see it. I think E3's done.
Yeah, I think you're right. I was curious to see this year, just because with the Penny Arcade thing, the PAX crew being the organizers, I kind of wanted to see like all the changes they were, because it sounded like they were planning some pretty significant reforms to the system. But
it requires you to have vendors.
We haven't had a real E3 in so long now. I missed it originally. It's like, okay, well, I don't care anymore.
I don't even know if the last couple E3s we had, like 18 and 19, they weren't at the same level as the early 2000 and early 2010 E3s.
You're right. It's just it was because of the. Let's be honest. For me, it was just because it made it an easy podcast episode to just focus in on a whole bunch of video game announcements, and it's something that, well, like we just got to enjoy talking about and doing that with TPF.
Yeah.
And what I had mentioned in my introduction, Watches and Wonders does this, but these are physical devices where getting hands-on makes sense in a show. With video games, you can let the media have like a demo kit and they download it. They don't have to be at an event. You don't have to structure it that way. So, times have changed. So.
You mean I can't download a Vacheron?
You can download a picture.
Oh. The other big topic is the UK regulators have softened their stance on the Microsoft Activision buyout, which I think is they were the ones that were looking to be the biggest. They had the biggest issues and were the ones that were looking like they were going to be roughest. But they have backed off, and they no longer think that it will be a major lessening of competition after taking feedback and talking to other members of the industry.
Oh, okay.
So it sounds like, now that they've talked to somebody whose name doesn't start with Sony, they realize that nobody else is worried about this except for Sony. Also, concerns have been brought up in the U.S. Congress about Sony engaging in blatant anti-competitive conduct with their major control of the high-end gaming market, and especially their complete control of the gaming market in Japan. And it was brought up during Senate Finance Committee or Trade Finance Committee hearing, and questions were asked in relation to it and an upcoming Pacific Trade Partnership thing that's being negotiated. And rather quickly after that, Japan approved the merger.
Yeah, what was that? Yeah, the market penetration on what's the competitive landscape for Microsoft in Japan? It's never been good.
Yeah, no, Sony has like 98%.
Yeah.
So it is, it's no big deal for them. So that leaves the big ones out there is the EU and the US market.
Right.
I guess technically, I don't think China's made a decision on it yet, but I don't think it's going to affect anything. We'll have to see. I think if EU and the US say it's okay, I don't know that China matters for it.
Okay.
But I don't know enough. That's a big thing. The EU's final decision is slated for the end of May. The US, last I heard, was talking about early summer making the decision. Yeah. So we'll have to see where that goes. But I think at this point, I think we're rolling in towards this being what we originally thought it would be, which is a done deal. Especially with the UK backing off, because they were the ones who were riding the competitive problem the hardest. There are unconfirmed reports. I'm going to go with unconfirmed reports. They're like from third party or I was there when somebody said it, but no direct stuff, that a conversation was had with a member of Sony staff where they brought up the fact that they'd offered Call of Duty for 10 years with an even better deal than they have on Call of Duty now. And the reply was, "Oh, I don't care about Call of Duty. I just don't want the merger to happen." So, which is what we've all thought all along.
I don't think it's surprising. Yeah.
Because the Call of Duty is the argument they're using. I think the biggest thing is, at this point, I wonder if it wasn't that Sony wanted that purchase and didn't get in time.
Could Sony afford to buy
I don't think
Activision
they
Blizzard?
could.
I don't think they're in the financial state to do it.
But I don't think they want the playfield coming closer to level. That's the thing that I've never got is everybody's talking about this kills competition. But even after the merger, Microsoft's still going to be in third place. It's not like not like they're going to first place and they're like double the size. They're not even going to be in second place.
On paper, my, and I don't know. My theory has been that Sony's concern is with the Activision library being available day one on Game Pass, that gamers over time will realize that it's cheaper to actually play games on Microsoft.
Right.
And so given that they'll lose market share, maybe not on the PS5, but when it comes to the PS6 and the Xbox One too, or whatever they're going to they'll do something dumb like that. Don't you worry.
The Xbox One again.
What again? The Xbox One 360. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. So
The Xbox One 360.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure the only thing to think anyone could name something worse than Nintendo when they did Wii U. But here's Microsoft saying, "Hold my beer." So that being said, I just think that it's Game Pass that's Sony's problem, because Microsoft has realized they're getting, especially for people that can't easily afford to buy a lot of games, Game Pass is such an attractive option. And to be able to say day one on release, you don't have to pay any extra money. You're getting stuff that Activision deals in, and Call of Duty is the big regular one that a lot of people, that's their big major purchase that they don't wait for a sale on every year. That was well, why would you own a Sony? All you need to really do is convince your friends to also just do Game Pass, get Microsoft's console. And so I don't think it's about them owning Activision. I think it's about the fact that if they own it, then Game Pass is going to, it's going to have it all. It's going to have everything, even if it's third party. Even if it's all on Sony still. Why spend $60? You're already subscribed to Game Pass. Here you go. Enjoy Call of Duty. Oh, plus all this other cool stuff.
I was subscribed to Game Pass on PC for a long time and played a lot of games because of it.
So that's what I think it is. I think Sony, they're not stupid. I think they see that and they're like, we just don't have anything that is as that. With Microsoft controlling so much first party, it becomes a problem. Right. Whereas otherwise they might have felt like, well, we have our parity comes in some other areas. We have a bigger install base that wants to, you want to continue with the same architecture. I did. I mean, and it was a tough, it was harder for me when Xbox One came out and they made all these decisions that were bad compared to what they had on the 360, and Sony made some big inroads, and Sony already was bigger then. There was a huge US market for Xbox, and a lot of them defected because Microsoft bungled it so badly. And now it's sort of like, well, Microsoft's trying to make amends by controlling a lot of I want to have stuff, and even if a lot of it's shared, if you don't have to pay extra for it, why would you?
Right. Well, and I think something that Sony needs to concentrate on is going to be their first-party games. They're going to have to make something, especially in that kind of first-person shooter Call of Duty zone. They're going to have to make something big.
Yep. Killzone has to come back.
And they're going to have to do something big. But remember, they own Bungie now.
Do they own them, or was it just a deal? I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
I thought they'd bought Bungie.
There's something arranged with Bungie. I didn't know if they were a second party developer or if they actually outright owned them. But that's a good one to bring up. Bungie obviously has a lot of FPS experience. They made Microsoft's kind of have to have game Halo on the first Xbox.
Yeah, last July, Sony officially purchased Bungie.
Okay.
So,
yeah, well, there you go. They have lots of experience in that.
I mean,
that and Destiny. I mean, it's a good studio that knows its stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if they want, that's the studio to use to build if you want to build a first-person shooter system that's just on your system.
Well, maybe they'll do it now.
We'll have to see. But that's all I kept in because I knew we'd be running pinball heavy.
Okay. Well, that's it for the show. So if individuals want to reach out to us, as I noted a couple times, you can email us eclecticgamerspodcast@gmail.com. You can visit us at facebook.com/eclecticgamerspodcast, and you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/eclectic_gamers.
We're available on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram as eclectic_gamers.
And we will be back in a couple of weeks with probably not nearly as a pinball heavy focused episode because we won't be recapping any shows.
Yeah.
So until next time, my name is Dennis.
I've been Tony.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.